di kalangan negeri-negeri Malaysia ini.
My father always tell me one thing. I said, you want to do business, you have to shoulder how much you can carry.
These digital talents are highly demanded globally. If you can sustain, manage it, you'll be successful. So you need to fail to be successful.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, for the Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge 2021, to the winners.
Fresh from school with 1 or 2 experience,
Positive thinking,
bercita-cita tinggi, energetic,
good attitude,
passionate people,
discipline, and willing to learn.
The age is not important.
SPM or diploma or degree.
we want you.
NationGate is in the midst of expansion.
We are looking for young people like you. Join us at 10 Performance Penang. Robotics is hiring.
Kemen Security,
UWC, Professional Tool and Dies.
EasyWay Solution Security Company,
If you are looking for a career with a high growth company, go to PYDC website to submit your CV to us. Content moderation, customer service executive,
security guard, security assistant,
IT web developer, multimedia designers, engineering staff, technical staff,
Trainer, lecturer,
supervisors. Young people, we want you.
Andalah yang kami tunggu dan andalah yang kami cari. Anda dapat bekerja dalam persekitaran kerja yang positif serta diberi pendedahan dan latihan yang luas.
Go to PYDC website, send your resume to us.
Otomotif,
Aviation,
oil and gas.
medical,
BPO.
process engineering, telecommunication. We want you.
If you are the right candidates, please go to PYDC website for more details.
Penang is full of career opportunities, especially for the young people. It is a great place to live and work. Discover your career opportunity from BYDC website. Your future starts here in Penang.
Good evening, everyone. The event will begin shortly. About the attendance, not to worry, the link will be provided at the end of the event. All participants must ensure that your microphone is turned off throughout the whole event unless permitted to do so otherwise. Students are also reminded to not leave the workshop at any point between the start of the event and the end of the event. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of I.D.E.A Fair 2022, I would like to express my utmost gratitude to all of you for willingly spending your time with us in this workshop. My name is Viveka, and I will be your MC for today. Before we start, let us give a brief introduction on I.D.E.A Fair. I.D.E.A Fair focuses on DIY projects and robotic automations related to science and arts. It aims to promote innovation, creativity, and fun in inventing. Before we start the Robotics Club USM Basic Python workshop, allow me to introduce our instructor for today. We have the honor of having Ms. To Hyung Ching as the instructor guiding us in this workshop this fine evening. She is a first-year, second semester student studying electrical engineering in USM. She is one of the exhibitors for I.D.E.A Fair 2022, and her project is to build database app using Python and Postgres SQL. Now that our instructor has been introduced, without further ado, I'd like to hand this event over to her to start the workshop. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over this event to Ms. To Hyung Ching for her to start the workshop. Before we start, let us watch a short video.
Good day everyone, welcome to Tekdong Penang, the very first science discovery center in Penang. So if you're wondering what you can do here, what are the beneficial things that you can do here is fun with science. What are you waiting for? Let's step in and explore. Are you a big fan of detective kind of action movies? Then this platform gonna excite you. You wanna be in this mission? I dare you not to get hit by this light beam. If you want to preserve a beautiful memories with your loved one, all you have to do is strike a pose and see how color absorbs the light energy and stores at the end of the day. You got your frozen shadow. You got me? Yeah, you freeze your shadow. The interesting and exciting exhibit that we have. Why? If you know about motion sensor, it senses your body movement and let the skeleton dance. So now you can dance and our Mr. Skeleton will copy your dance move. G-Drop is the world's first freestanding exhibit that explains about gravity in a very easiest way. You can slide at same speed regardless of your body size. We are in a 4th floor near KFC. For further information, you can inquire our Facebook page down below.
What brings industries closer to perfection? We say precision and integration. For precision, it simply leads to innovations, while integration in industries saves crucial time to the manufacturing process. You may be asking, how do we know that? Well, we contributed to the advancement of the semiconductor industry. Our team of engineers developed solutions to our customers' most challenging needs. We provided excellence in precision to the instrumentation products that is used in various fields. We also serve customers in aerospace, life science and medical, and electrical and electronics (E&D) industries. We participate in the improvement of 5G telecommunication infrastructure. We build prototypes of the future. We acquired the necessary certifications to operate. Who we are? We are Karaza. We were established in 2001, choosing Penang, Malaysia as a strategic location for its fast-growing market. a base to heavy semiconductor industry presence while being on a world-renowned shipping route catering both to the local and international markets alike. We are an integrated engineering solutions provider with over 20 years' experience, having core competencies in sheet metal fabrication, precision machining, and electromechanical assembly. We collaborate with customers on the design and development of their products. One of the key production processes is to implement advanced quality planning that facilitates communication and collaboration between ourselves and our customers to achieve production efficiency by reducing cost and improving production cycle time. Since the company's inception, we have constantly expanded our capabilities by moving to ever larger infrastructure and investing in state-of-the-art machinery to integrate multiple processes. Most of all, we harness the human potentials, generating stakeholders' values and contributing to social development. We are a key part in the supply chain amongst the fast-growing industries. Be a part of us. Coraza. Think excellence. Think Coraza.
Good day everyone, welcome to TechDom Penang, the very first science discovery center in Penang. So if you're wondering what you can do here, what are the beneficial things that you can do here is fun with science. What are you waiting for? Let's step in and explore.
Testing, can you hear me?
Are you a big fan of detective kind of action movies?
Alright, sorry for the technical problem just now. So now I'm going to share my screen. Alright, so can you all see my screen now?
Yes, you can.
Alright, so without further ado, I'm going to start the workshop today. So welcome everyone to the Basic Python workshop organized by the I.D.E.A and also the Robotics Club USM. I'm your tutor for today. My name is Toyoung Cheng. And today in the workshop, I'm going to teach about some basic knowledge, not only about Python, but can also be applied to other programming language as well, for example, C++ and many other. All right, so first and foremost, I'm going to introduce to you about some integrated development environment or the code editors that can be used to write the program using the Python programming language. And here listed some of the examples on the I.D.E.A and the code editors, which include the PyCharm I.D.E., the I.D.E.A, Visual Studio Code, and the Sublime Text. So as we have mentioned earlier before this, in this workshop, we're going to use the PyCharm I.D.E. to write the program. All right, so how to get started to write our very first Python program? The first step is always to download and install the Python followed by the PyCharm I.D.E. on your laptop. So I hope all of you here has done this step before you join this workshop. If you are facing any problem in downloading and installing all this software, you may always refer to the video on the installation guide provided by us. So after you have downloading and installing all this software on your laptop, you may now create a new folder followed by a new file in the PyCharm I.D.E. And after this, you can now start to write your code in the new project or the new file that you created. Okay, finally, you may save your code and run it to see the output of the program. Okay, so now I'm going to demonstrate to you all on how to create a new project and a new file in the PyCharm I.D.E. So now I'm going to go to my desktop. All right. And here is my desktop. So if you have already installed the PyCharm IDE, you will see one icon like this appear on your laptop desktop. So to run the software, I'm going to simply double click on it. Okay, and you will see a window like this pop up. And you might don't have the files here, but it's okay. So to create a new project, simply click the new project here to create a new project. And you will see something like this. Okay, and there are 3 steps for you to do before you create a new project. The first step is always to rename your project, and next you should check the location here, and after this you should check the interpreter here. So the first step, I'm going to rename my project. I'm going to name it as for example, first project. Okay, and after that, for the location, I'm going to use the default one, so I'm not going to change this part. And for the interpreter, just to make sure that it is not empty. All right, so that's all. There's 3 steps you should check before create a new project. First is to rename, and then to use the default location, and last to make sure that the interpreter is not empty. All right, so now you can hit the create button to create a new project. So as you can see, a new project in the PyCharm IDE has now been created. A project in PyCharm is actually nothing but a folder where you can put all your Python files together and manage them in a better and a more systematically way. So next, I'm going to create a new Python file in this project folder. To create a new Python file, you have to click on the file and you have to click the new, and I'm going to select Python file, and I'm going to name it as, for example, demo with the extension .py and hit enter. So now as you can see, a new Python file with the name demo.py is now created in the first project folder. All right, now I'm going to back to the slide. Okay, all right, now let's proceed to the first topic of today's workshop, which is the print function. All right, similar to other programming language also, in Python, it enables us to print a specified message on screen. And the built-in function in Python that allow us to carry out such tasks is called as the print function. So basically, the function of this print function is to allow us to print the specified message to the screen. And we can see from here the syntax of this print function is comparatively easy when compared to other programming language. We just simply need to type print followed by a bracket, and a double quote indicate that the message is a string, and inside the double quote we just need to specify the message that we want to print to the screen. All right, the message can be a string or any other object, for example, a number. So next, I'm going to demonstrate to you on how to use this print function to print the specific message on screen. So I'm going to put a header here, print function. All right, in Python, in order to add a command, you can simply add here a hashtag sign just right before your command. And after this hashtag sign, you can add whatever command you want to add. All right, I'm going to demonstrate on how to print a string on screen. All right, to print a string. For example, I'm going to print hello world. I'll just simply type print followed by a bracket and a double quote. Inside the double quote to specify the message hello world. All right, and next I'm going to save this code and run to see the output. To save the code, you may simply hit Ctrl+S on your keyboard to save the file. And to run the code, you may right click on any of the region here. So I'm going to right click here and I'm going to click run demo, where demo is the name for this file. I'm going to click run demo to run this file. And as we can see, the hello world is now successfully printed on the output screen. All right, so this is basically how the print function in Python works. Now let's move to the next topic, which is about the concept of variables and data types. So the concept of variable is actually a very important concept in Python, where it is actually like a container to store the data values of various data types. Um, in programming, anything can be a data. For example, an alphabet, a word, a sentence, a number, all of them can be data of different data types. While these data types can be further divided into 4 types, mainly the text types, numeric types, sequence types, and the Boolean. Well, in this workshop, I'm going to focus on the text types and the numeric types. Like what I have mentioned before, an alphabet, a word, a sentence, a line, or even a number that cannot be used to perform any mathematical operation, or a number that is constant can be considered as having a data type of text type, or what we call a string. While numeric type is actually data type that, for example, the number that can be used to perform mathematical operation, and it can be further divided into 3 types, which is the integer, the float, and the complex. The integer and float are dealing with the real number, while the complex is dealing with the number that they are having the real part as well as the imaginary part. So the main difference between this integer and the float data type is that integer data type is basically the number that does not have any decimal place, while float is actually number that have the decimal place. So now I'm going to demonstrate on how to create variables using Python. So to create a variables using Python is comparatively easy when compared to other programming language, since we do not have to declare the data type when we are creating it. So to create variables, all right, I'm going to demonstrate on how to create a string variable first. So string variables, for example, I want to create a string variable with the content hello world. I'm going to give it a name. Let's say I'm going to name it as sentence as the variable name, and I'm going to assign it a value followed by a double quote indicate that it is a string. And inside the double quote, I'm going to put the content of the string, hello world. All right, so now a variable with the name sentence and is storing a string is now created. So next is turn for the integer variable. So to create an integer variable, same, I'm going to give it a name, for example, number, and let's say 20. For string variable, we don't need to put a double quote since the double quote is an indicator for the string. So now for the float, it's also same way to indicate. I'm going to name it as number 2, and let's say it's 20.5. All right, so this is basically the way how to create a string variable, integer variable, and float variable in Python. All right, and we do not need to declare the data type for the variable. So now, and there's one method to check the data type for the variables, which is to use the type function. And I'm going to introduce the method. It's actually a built-in function in Python, which will return the data type of a specific variable. All right, so let's say I want to check the data type for this variable number. So I'm going to just pass the variable to this type function. All right, simply type, and I'm going to pass number to the type function. And in order to read the content that returned by this type function, I'm going to use the print function to print out the content. All right, I'm going to add something like the data type for variable number. okay, followed by a comma. And I'm going to save the file by hit Ctrl plus S and run it. And as you can see from here that the data type for the variable number is of data type integer. So this is the way on how can we check the data type of a specific variable. All right, so okay, so after we have learned about the concept of variables and data type, we are going to learn about the next topic, which is to accept input from user in Python. There's one built-in function to accept input from user in Python, which is called the input function. It is basically a function which allows you to accept some number or some sentence, or in summary, some data from the user. And it is important to notice that whatever user enter as input, the input function convert it into a string. Here list the syntax for the input function, so it's easy. Also, we just need to simply type input and then followed by a bracket, and in the double quote, we need to specify the message or the instruction that we want to display to the user. For example, if I want to ask user for their name, I need to type, please enter your name. All right, next I'm going to demonstrate on how to use the input function to obtain data from user. All right, input function. And I'm going to ask user for their name. Please enter your name. And I'm going to save the code and run it again. So here I'm going to, let's say I'm going to enter my name. All right. And when I hit enter, as you can see, nothing happened here and the program terminates. So is there any method if you really want to save or retain the data entered by the user? Yeah, there's actually one way, and we have to recall back the knowledge that we have learned before, the concept of variable. We learned here that the variables are containers. So actually, we can apply the concept of variable here in order to store the data input by the user. To create a variable, I'm going to give the variable a name. I'm going to assign the variable that I've created with the values returned by the input function here. So for example, if I would like to create a variable to store the data here, I'm going to name it as user name. And with this equals to sign, I've already assigned the value returned by this input function here to the variable username. So now in order to read the content inside the variable username, I'm going to print out, okay, pass the variable username to the print function to print out the content inside the variable username. Now save the code and run it. All right, I'm going to enter my name again. Okay, and now as we can see, by using the variable, we can not only save the data input by the user, we can also retrieve it by using the variable. All right, so now I'm going to enter the next topic, which is about the operators. In Python, we can also use Python to perform some simple mathematical operations. In this workshop, to save the time, I will only focus on the arithmetic operator. So I'm going to give it a header again, operators. And we can use Python to perform some simple operations, include the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and so on. All right. So in order to perform, let's say I would like to perform a simple multiplication operation. I'm going to create I'm going to simply print out the result. I'm going to use the print function, and let's say I would like to search for the input of 20 times 2. Okay, so now save the code. Wait, I'm going to comment out this line first. All right, save the code and run to see the result. So as you can see, 20 times 2, and it print the output here as 14. So this is basically how we can use Python to carry out simple mathematical operations. And one thing to be mentioned is that about the division. When we really want to perform division operation using Python, for example, I would like to have 20 divided by 2. So I'll put a slash here. And let's run this program to see how is the output. And we will notice from here is that it will show, instead of 10, it will show a float number with decimal point 10.0. So there's some case where we don't want this happen, where we would like to have an integer number to as the output. So this is how the double slash here works, or we call it as the float division. So if you replace this slash with a double slash, I'm going to, all right, replace the slash with a double slash, which means that I'm going to perform a float division. All right, let's save the code and see the output. And we can see from here is that if the single slash here is replaced with a double slash, now the float output is now converted into an integer output. So this is basically how this double slash work. And for this double star sign here is actually means raise the power of. So for example, if I'm going to find the value of 20 raised the power of 2, or what we call the 20 square, we can use basically write like this. Okay, 20 followed by 2 star and 2, which have the same meaning as 20 square. All right. So the value of 20 square is actually 400. So this is basically how you can use the Python to perform some simple mathematical operation. All right. After all this, going through all this topic, we are going to have our first task for today, which is to accept the input from user and print on screen. It's a very simple task, and I'm going to open a new file to carry out this task. Okay, to open a new file, I'm going to click File here and click New, and I'm going to select Python file, and I'm going to name it as task1.py. All right, as you can see, a new file with the name task1 is now created, and I'm going to perform this task on this new file. All right. In this task, we are required to write a program to perform the following, which is to ask user for their name, their age, and next I'm going to print the input values on screen with the following format like this. So if we read the question properly, we can notice that actually this task can be divided into 3 parts. Okay, the first part is to ask user for the input data. All right, to get input data from user. All right, and next, the second part is to save the input data from user into the variable. Save the input data, and the last part is to print the output on screen and formulate the output. Okay, so this is basically the 3 parts that we have to complete it in order to complete this task. All right, for the first part, we are going to get input from user using the input function. So I'm going to use the input function. And in this double quote to specify the message that I would like to display to user. For example, I'm going to tell user to enter your name. All right, and next I'm going to tell user, I'm going to copy paste this line. Tell user to enter their age, and all right. So that's how we can get the input data from user. And the second step is to save the input data into variables. I'm going to name the variables as user name. Okay. And for the age, I'm going to name it as user age. All right. So now we have now done the first and the second part. And the last part is to print the output on screen and formulate the output according to this format. So I'm going to use the print function. Okay, I'm going to type out the whole sentence first. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is. Okay, since after the is we should put the input data followed by the user. So here I'm going to pass the variable username to the print function, followed by a comma, and my name is, I am user age. I'm going to pass user age to the print function, years old. Okay, so now after we have typed the entire, passed the entire sentence to the print function, we notice that here some of the line they are printed on separate line or printed on the new line. So in order to do this, I'm going to add a very simple step, which is to add a \n right before the beginning of a new line. For example, the second line begin with my, so I'm going to add a \n just right before my, and I'm going to add a \n right before I, where the \n actually indicate a new line. So, okay, so let's save the code and see how is the output. Run the code, run task 1, enter your name. I'm going to enter my name again. And my age is 21. So as you can see, the output here have already printed in this format. All right, so this is basically how we can do to perform the task 1. All right, this is basically about the task 1. And one thing to be noted is that, as we have learned before, actually whatever data returned by this input function, the input function will return it as a string. So for example, if we are going to print out the data type for this user age, all right, I'm going to use the type function, print type user age. Okay, I'm going to comment out the username first, and also the print function. Okay, if we want to find the data type for the user age, I'm going to enter my age. And as we can see, instead of an integer, it returned as a string, which means that although the number entered by the user is a number, but the input function will return it as a string, which means that when sometimes we need to get some input data from user and we need to perform some mathematical operation on the input data, we still have to convert the data from string to integer before we can perform any operation on the data. So next, we are going to learn about how to convert the input data entered by the user from string to integer data type. All right, so now come to the part of setting the data type. As I've mentioned before, in Python, the data type is set when we assign a value to a variable. So we do not need to declare any data type when we are creating a variable. So there are actually some steps in order to specify the data type for a variable, which is to use the following built-in function here. For example, if you would like to specify the data type for a variable x as string, we just need to pass the content of x to the function str followed by a bracket. Pass the content to this function and it will automatically convert the content of this variable x into a string. Same goes to the integer data type and also the float data type. So with this, we know that in order to convert the data type of a variable from one to another, we can utilize these three built-in functions here. So now come to the task 2. I'll demonstrate to you all about how we can use these three built-in function here to convert the string data type into an integer or a float data type so that we can perform some operation on it. So for the task 2, I'm going to open a new file again. Click File here, select New, and select the Python file, and I'm going to name it as task2.py. All right. So task 2, we are going to, it's very easy. We are going to calculate the volume of a cuboid using the dimension specified by the user. We're going to write a program to ask for the length, base, and width of a cuboid from the user, and we're going to print the volume of the cuboid on screen. So this task, we can also divide it. It is actually same as task 1. So I'm going to copy this 3 step here as the guide for task 2. However, there are some additional steps where after we save the input data, we have to convert the input data from string to float data type. Convert the input data from string to float. And next, we are going to use the input data to calculate the volume. All right. So, okay, instead of formulate the output, we are going to print the volume on screen. All right, the first step is always to get input data from user. We're going to ask user for the length, base, and width. All right, so use the input function again. We're going to ask user for the length of the cuboid. All right, and I'm going to copy this line. Okay, ask user for the width. And the last is the base. Okay, so after we get the input data from the user, we must always save the input data into variables. Just simply give the variable a name. Let's say length is equals to, and width, sorry. All right, and the last is the base. Okay, now we have saved the input data into these three variables. All right, and the next step is to convert the input data from string to float. We can utilize the built-in function here to specify the variable as a float data type. All right, I'm going to use the, okay, I'm going to pass these three variables to the float function. I'm going to pass the length first. And in order to read the content returned by this float function, I'm going to print out the content using the print function. All right, and I'm going to copy paste this line.
Excuse me?
Yes.
So what you're doing is now you're converting the string into float, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right, so same to be done to the width and also the base. Okay, so now with this step, we have already convert the length here from string to integer. So with this, we can print the content out. Okay, so for you all to clearly see, I'm going to add something like the data type for variable the data type for variable length, followed by a comma. Okay. I'm going to change here width and base. Okay. All right. Now the third step have already done. We have already convert the data from string to float. Next is to calculate the volume. It's very simple. I'm going to create a new variable called volume, and the content of the volume is equals to length times width times base times width times base. Okay, and I'm going to print volume on screen. All right, so let's run the code and see what will happen. It asks for the length. Let's say we enter it as 2, and for the width 3 and 4 for the base, and hit enter again. Eh. Oh, okay, I forgot one step. Sorry. Okay, I should save the I should save the integer. Oh, sorry, it's not about integer, it's float. Okay, I should save the input data in the float data type into the variable. I forgot one step. So I cannot directly write like this. I should save it to the variable first. So now the variable length, width, and base, it's no longer storing data of string data type. It's storing data of float data type now. Okay. Save the code and run. It should be okay right now. 2, 3, and 4. Hit enter. Okay, sorry, I'm going to check something first. Wait. Open the recent workshop. New window. Task 2. Oh, okay. Wait. I shouldn't use print function here. Okay, I'm going to delete this line. Okay. Okay, just simply convert the length, width, and base from string to float. And all we have to print is the volume. So save the code and run. 2, 3, 4. Okay, now it shows that we can use the length and the width and also the base to perform the mathematical operation. And it shows that the value here where 2 times 3 times 4 is equals to 24. All right. I shouldn't use print function just now. I should use only the print function when I want to print out the volume. And here, for this step, we should only convert the string to float. All right, so that's all for the task 2. Okay, sorry for the technical problem just now. So let's move to the last topic for today, which is about the if elif and else statement. Okay, so the if, elif, and else statement is actually a very important concept in not only Python but also in the many other programming language also, as it allows us to do some condition checking or multiple expression checking. So if we look at the syntax here, it is always consists of a text expression, either if, elif, or else, a text expression followed by a body or what we call a block of coding. So, okay, so if we imagine this as a block of code, so when we run this program and the compiler will go through all of this line. So the compiler will read this line first, and there will be two possible output when the compiler read this line. The first output is that the condition for this if expression is true. Then the compiler will enter here and the body of if will be executed. But however, if the condition for the if expression is false, then the compiler will skip this, the body of it. It won't execute the body of it, and it will jump to check for the condition for elif. And if the condition for elif is true, then the compiler will execute the body of elif. And same if the condition for elif is false, then the compiler will skip the body of elif and jump to check the condition for the next elif expression, or it will jump to check the condition for else, depending on how we write the code. So consider the text here. The elif is short for else if, and it allows us to check for multiple expression or multiple conditions. If the condition for if is false, then it checks the condition of the next elif block and so on. So if the condition here is false, then it will jump to check the condition or the expression of the next elif expression here. So if all the conditions are false, for example, if the compiler have gone through all the if and elif and it finds that okay, all the condition above is false, then it will automatically execute the body of else. Okay, only one block among the several if, elif, and else blocks will be executed according to the condition, which means that where you can see there are three blocks of coding here. However, when we run the program, only one block among these three blocks here will be executed according to the condition. All right, so here the if block can only have one else block, but it can have multiple elif blocks. All right, so it might be a bit confused. So next, I'm going to show you on how to actually apply this if, elif, and else statement in to do some condition checking to write a Python program. So let's go through this task tree. In this task tree, we are going to check if a number is odd or even. So how do we connect the requirement of this task tree to the if, elif, and else statement here? In task tree, we are required to do some condition checking, and there will be two conditions. The first condition is that the number is odd, and the second condition is that the number is even. So, okay, if the number is even, which means that the second condition is false, then the compiler will execute the block of coding for the condition where the number of even is true. Okay, so I'm going to open a new file again. I'm going to click File, New, and I'm going to select Python file here. I'll name it as task3. Okay, I'm going to perform task3 in this file. Okay. Okay. So if we read the question carefully, we can also divide our job scope into 3 parts. The first part is always to get an integer number from user, since we want to check the number entered by the user is even or odd using the if-else statement. So we have to get an integer number from user first, and next we have to convert the input number from user from string to integer again. And the last step is to check whether the number is odd or even. So I'm going to list it down here. Get an integer number from user. The next step is to convert the input from string to integer. And the last step is to check whether the number is odd or even. All right, there are 3 steps here. First step is always to get a number from user. Okay, I'll just use back the input function, and I'm going to ask user to enter a number. Enter a number. Okay. And next, after we ask user to enter a number, don't forget to save it in the variable. Simply give it a name. For example, number is equals to. Okay. So now I'm going to convert the data stored in the variable number here into integer. Okay, I'm going to use the built-in function int, and in the bracket I'm going to pass the variable number to it. And with this, I've already convert the number from string to integer, and now I'm going to store the number in integer data type back to the variable number again. I'm going to assign the value returned by the integer function to the variable number. Okay, so now I've already convert the input from string to integer. The last step is to check whether the number is odd or even. So to check the number is odd or even, we are going to use the if-else statement here. In this task, I'm not going to use the else statement since there will be only 2 possible conditions. So I'm going to use one condition for if and the other for the else. So to use the if-else statement here, simply type if. Okay. And without any bracket, you can just simply specify the condition for the if expression here. So what is the condition? The condition is that the number is even. So if I want to specify the number is even, I'm going to use the remainder sign is equals to 0 and end with a colon here. So this is how the syntax we should use to write an if expression. So actually, what does this line means? Actually, this line means that the percentage signs here actually means the remainder. Okay, percentage is equals to remainder, which means that when I add a percentage sign here, it actually means that when the number entered by the user is divided by 2, the remainder is equals to 0. So here we have to recall some basic mathematical knowledge. When an even number is divided by 2, its remainder is equals to 0. So if the input number entered by the user is equals to 0, it basically means that the number is actually an even number. So with this, we can now confirm that the number is an even number. So what we have to do is that we need to tell user the number is even. All right, we need to print the message on screen. The number is even. This is the message that we want to tell the user. Okay, so this is all for the if block. And now come to the second condition where the number entered by the user is an odd number. I'm going to use the else followed by a colon. If for else, we doesn't need to specify any condition for the else statement. If the condition for the if statement is wrong, the compiler will automatically execute the block of coding inside the else statement by default. So we do not need to specify any condition for else. So for else, if the number is even, we are going to tell user that the number is even. Sorry, the number is odd. Okay, so this is basically how the syntax for an if-else statement. So let's run the code and see what will happen. Run task 3, enter a number. Let's say I would like it to be an even number, so I'm going to enter 2. Okay, and it tells me that the number 2 is even. So if for the case for an odd number, I'm going to run it again. For odd number, I'm going to enter 3. Okay, and it tells me the number 3 is odd. So this is basically uh, uh, all, uh, all about the task 3 where we can use the if-else statement to check the condition. In this case, the condition is that whether the number entered by the user is odd or the number entered by the user is even. Okay, so that's all for the workshop today, all we have to learn and all the tasks that we have performed. So I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you all for the participation here.
Thank you so much, Ms. So. That was such an informative session. Now, we are in our Q&A session. All questions and inquiries from participants are welcome. Do post your questions in the given link in the chat box and I will read them out right after this. So, Ms. So, one of the questions are why engineers mostly prefer using MATLAB rather than Python?
Um, uh, actually, I'm only a first year student and I don't even learn about what is MATLAB. So I think I can't answer this question.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, so it seems like there are no other further questions, and I hope that the workshop was crystal clear and like, yeah. Before we wrap up our workshop, I'd like to ask all participants to turn on their cameras for our photography session. I repeat, I'd like to ask all participants to turn on their cameras for our photography session. All right, that's all for our photography session. Thank you for the cooperation given by all the participants. Do not forget to check out the live interactive game Brainstorm Storyline happening right after this and the I.E.E.A and I.E.T. UCSI Node Rate Platform Workshop happening at 8 p.m. today. And do not forget to play our mini game for today at our official website. It only closes at 10 p.m., so there's plenty of time left. So do go check it out at our official website, and the link will be provided in the chat box. Looks like we have reached the end of our event. All participants are required to fill up the attendance and feedback form by scanning the QR code as shown on the slide or by clicking the link given in the chat box. It is important for participants to fill up the attendance form and feedback form, so I highly request you to do so. Once again, I would like to express my utmost gratitude to all of you for willingly spending your time with us tonight. Please follow our Facebook page, I.D.E.A Fair USM, and Instagram account, I.D.E.A Fair USM, to know more about our future events. Thank you.